What's up, guys? SAG here, and welcome to another video here. Welcome to NFL Spread Talk. It's week 3, and I hope you all are doing well. And let's just get started here. Let's start by looking at our recap for last week. Now, it was an interesting week last week. I mean, we had a rough time, to say the least. It was average, really bang average, guys. I mean, in our money picks, we went 2-2. The Vikings got stumped on Monday Night Football. The Packers and the Dolphins, look, credit to the Dolphins, man. What a comeback. The Packers, I mean, this is my pick of picks, guys. The Packers, I bet that game a week before the game started just to get a good line. And they stumped Chicago. 8.5, 10, didn't matter. They were going to win. And the Colts, -4, man, the Colts look bad, man. They don't look good against Jacksonville. This is not a good team, man. I'm starting to realize that their offensive line looked horrible. In their average picks, we went 4-4, bang average. The Broncos -10 lost. The Bengals outright lost against the Cowboys. The Chargers and the Buccaneers won. Browns, what a collapse! I mean, goodness. The Patriots won and the Lions won, and the Seahawks lost. So 4-4, guys. In our void picks, we went 3-1. How about that? The Titans, they got blown out by Buffalo, man. That's why I avoided this game. The Giants, -2.5, ended up getting the win. The Falcons, +10.5, easily covered that. And the Cardinals, +6. They outright won the game, guys. This is why I just didn't like the line. Now, it was looking bad at first. I mean, I'll admit that. But, I mean, it was an avoid pick for a reason. I didn't trust both teams at all. But credit to the Cardinals. They showed up when it mattered the most. So let's look at our overall record. I'm just pulling it up on the screen, and it'll be up on the screen. At least should be. In our money picks, we're 4-4. In our average picks, we're average 8-7. In our avoid picks, we're 4-4. I think we're gonna have a response this week. We're gonna show up again. You don't win in your first 2 weeks. You win after that. So let's hope we can get some response. Let's get some wins here. You learn a lot after the first 2 weeks, and this is where the overreacting begins, usually. So first game, I'm just going to quickly summarize this game because it's already passed by the time I posted this, and I've seen it. Pittsburgh taking on Cleveland. I took Pittsburgh as an avoid pick, and Cleveland ended up winning and covering. I just had that feeling Cleveland was going to win and cover, but at the same time, I just didn't really trust them necessarily. So again, credits to Cleveland. They played a great game. Jacoby Brissett's a solid quarterback, and Nick Chubb is an amazing running back. So that was an avoid pick. Pittsburgh +4.5, and it didn't cash. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I actually posted this on my Instagram account before the game started. Next up, let me just check my picks. Yep. Next up is the Washington Commanders going to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. Eagles are 7-point favorites. And, I mean, Philadelphia, first game, they ended up barely pulling out against the Lions. And then in game 2, they really pulled out. They looked fantastic. Jalen Hurts, man, he picked apart that soft shell defense. And he had 333 yards, 1 touchdown, interception. The interception wasn't really even his fault. And he rushed for a pair of scores as well. Over on the Washington side, man, they kicked off their matchup against the Jaguars. I mean, they ended up winning that game 28-22 after posting 14 points in the fourth quarter. And then against the Lions, they were down 22-0 at the break. In the second half, they ended up still losing 36-27, but they made a comeback. Carson Wentz, he went for 30 of 46 for 337 yards, 3 scores and a pick, and Curtis Samuel was their top receiver with 78 yards and a touchdown on 7 catches. Now, if I were to look at Philly here, if anyone wants to bet Philly, bet them in the first half because it seems like Washington doesn't show up in the first half. But if we're talking about the game here, I got to take the Commanders in the points. I think people are overhyping Philadelphia, who picked apart a bad Minnesota defense. I'm taking the Commanders plus the 7 here as an average pick because I think they're just good enough to keep this a game. So yeah, Commanders plus the points, and I'm going to make this an average pick. Next up, we have the Bengals taking on the Jets. The Bengals are 5-point favorites. Goodness, only 5-point favorites against the Jets, guys. And there's a reason why. Because, I mean, although Cincinnati has won 5 of their last 8 road games, Joe Burrow doesn't look good. He's thrown 4 interceptions compared to 3 touchdowns. Now he has completed for 64% of his passes. He does have 537 yards. Now Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, they've combined for 281 receiving yards and 2 TDs, while Joe Mixon has 10 receptions. The Bengals' ground game is averaging 111 yards per contest, with Joe Mixon leading the way with 139 yards on 46 carries. Now, defensively, Cincinnati is allowing 21.5 points per game and 302 yards per game. Graham Pat leads the Bengals with 13 tackles, and B.J. Hill has a sack and a pass deflection. Now, the Jets, they've lost 6 of their last 7 home games, including their home opener against the Baltimore Ravens. Joe Flacco has completed 61% of his passes for 616 yards, 5 touchdowns and 1 interception. Corey Davis and Garrett Wilson combined for 314 receiving yards, while Elijah Moore is pretty solid too. Now, they average 88 yards on the ground per contest, with Michael Carter leading the way. Defensively, they've allowed 27 points combined both games and 339 yards per game. C.J. Mosley, this guy can play, leads the Jets with 18 tackles. I mean, the Bengals, they've been going through some tough games. But in this game, I look for them to respond. Their season's on the line, guys, and they're going to show up for this game. There's a reason. I think this line is too small. If it wasn't for the Browns collapsing and being Cleveland, the Jets would have easily not covered. They were down by 2 scores, and Cleveland, for some reason, just folded like a pitched tent. I mean, guys, this Jets team don't overlook last week, because that game against Baltimore resembles what they really are. It's not a good team. So I'm taking the Bengals -5 as an average pick. It's time for Joe Burrow to respond, and I see it coming in this game. Next up, we have the Buffalo Bills, who are 6-point favorites taking on the Miami Dolphins. And the Bills, they've won 4 of their last 5 road games, and Josh Allen can play. I mean, goodness, Stephon Diggs, what a game this guy had against Tennessee, going for 3 touchdowns. Man, he carried my fantasy football team. The Bills' ground game is averaging 111 yards per contest. Devin Singletary leads the way there. I mean, goodness, this guy can play. Buffalo on defense is just absolutely fantastic. They played great against Tennessee and the Rams. Taron Jackson leads the team with 14 tackles. Von Miller has 2 sacks, and Jordan Pryor has 2 interceptions. Now, on Miami's side, they've won 7 straight home games, including last week against Baltimore, where they had an amazing comeback. Tua Tagovailoa has 739 yards, 7 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. Tyreek Hill, sorry, they didn't play last week. I'll take that back, guys. Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle have 524 yards and 5 touchdowns. I mean, they had the amazing comeback against Baltimore to make it 2-0. I mean, it was quite the comeback. Baltimore just folded. I mean, goodness. Now, in this game, guys, I watched that Tennessee game, guys. I think Buffalo is just such a good team that until further notice, I'm probably not going to bet against them. I'm taking the Bills -6 here because I think Miami isn't that good. And Buffalo do a better job than Baltimore did containing this Miami offense. Guys, don't overlook, what happened earlier in the game and what happened against New England. Miami can't score at will like Buffalo can. Josh Allen and his offense is firing on all cylinders. Guys, I'm taking an average pick here. I'm taking Buffalo -6 because I just think it's a bit high. But I still think Buffalo is going to cover this game. They're just that good. Next up, actually, let me check that again. Yeah, got it. Okay, next up we have the Saints, who are 3-point favorites taking on the Panthers. Here, Saints have won each of their last 4 road games. Jameis Winston, he wasn't that good last week against Tampa Bay. He has 4 rib fractures. Man, this guy is suffering on the field. I couldn't try to play with 4 rib fractures, I'll tell you that. Jarvis Landry and Michael Thomas, they've combined for 261 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, their defense was fantastic against Tampa Bay. They are allowing 23 points and 338 yards per game. Now, this defense is better than what those estimates even say. This is a solid team. They shut out Tampa Bay in a half. That's impressive. Now, the Panthers, they've lost their last 7 home games. Baker Mayfield, he's completing only 53.6% of his passes for 2 touchdowns and a pick. I mean, he hasn't really been that good. And Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore, they've been solid. But again, if you don't have the passing game, you can't really get those guys in play. Now, running the ball, they've been pretty good. Christian McCaffrey, he has 135 yards in the TD through 2 games. And their defense hasn't been too bad. Xavier Woods, he leads the Panthers with 20 tackles. That's crazy. 20 tackles. I mean, my goodness. In my opinion, guys, I think the New Orleans Saints are going to come back and respond in this game. They are a really good team, and they're going to be a lot better offensively than what they were last game. And hopefully with Alvin Kamara likely coming back, I think they're going to be solid. I'm taking the New Orleans Saints -3 in the average pick because I think Carolina's just not that good. And the Saints defensively are rock solid. It's going to be a low-scoring game, guys. But I'm taking the Saints -3 average pick. Let me just get this scrolled down. Next up, we have the Texans taking on the Bears. Chicago is -2.5. I mean, the Texans will be looking for a rebound from a 69 loss against Denver. Offensively, they were okay, but it just didn't work out. Denver's a solid team defensively. And for Chicago, they're going to be looking to bounce back after a 27-10 loss. I mean, offensively, they don't look good that game. They eliminated Justin Fields. I think Justin Fields barely had over 100 yards passing the ball. I mean, they just aren't that good offensively, Chicago. They're limiting Justin Fields. Justin Fields needs to work on throwing in the pocket. Now, David Montgomery in the running is pretty good. He didn't really get going against Green Bay much. But in this game, guys, I don't know, man. These are 2 trash teams. And if I were to look at which team looks a bit more promising, I'm going to lean towards Houston here. And I think Houston looks a bit more promising because against Indianapolis, they showed up and played a solid game. And also against Denver, they played pretty solid too. They kept it relatively close. So I'm going to take an avoid pick on this one because I really just don't know. But I'm taking Houston +2.5 here just because they're the underdog here. Maybe get them at +3 if you really want to bet this game. I'm taking my hands off of this one. I really don't know. Next up, we have the Detroit Lions, who are 6-point underdogs, taking on the Vikings. Now, the Lions, they played pretty solid in their 36-27 win against Washington. In the first half, they showed out and they were up 22-0. And they almost allowed a comeback, but Washington isn't that good to come back. Jared Goff, he's thrown for 471 yards, 6 TDs, and a pick, while DeAndre Swift has led the Lions with 200 rushing yards in a TD. I mean, on defense, Tracy Walker's been pretty good. So is Jeff Okudah, and Aiden Hutchinson has 3 sacks. This Lions team's kind of fun to watch. They look a lot better than last year, in my opinion. Now, the Vikings, they're going to look to rebound from that 24-7 loss against Philadelphia. Kirk Cousins looked horrible in that game, threw a bunch of picks at Darius Slay, and this offense just could not get going. On the defensive end, they played soft shell zone, and it really did not work out against Philadelphia. And I think it could be more of the same against Detroit if they don't adjust. Harrison Smith, of course, he has 18 solo tackles, and Daniel Hunter and DJ Wonnum both have 2 sacks. Now, here in this game, guys, I think the big factor here is the Lions are on the road, and I think when the Lions are on the road, they're a lot worse than when they are at home. I think at home, they have that momentum of the crowd, so they play a lot better. And the Vikings are going to look to respond at home, guys. I think this is a smash mouth game where the Vikings are going to look for some revenge, and they're going to take it out on this Lions defense. This is a game where the Vikings are going to dominate. And I think the biggest factor is the Lions are going on the road now. They got a tough road game. They're coming off a win. They're happy. Now they're going to get some reality checking against the Vikings. Guys, I'm taking an average pick here, and I'm taking the Vikings -6 here. Next up, we have the Ravens heading to New England to take on the Patriots. And, both teams, the Patriots, they're coming off a win. But for the Ravens, they're coming up a tough loss where they were up 35-14 after 3 quarters, and they just folded, giving up 28 more points in a 42-38 loss. Lamar Jackson had 318 yards and 3 touchdowns, and also led the rush with 119 yards and another score. Offensively, they were great. They looked fantastic. Lamar Jackson ran all over Miami, but they just couldn't get it done defensively. And on the Patriots side, they didn't look great against in their home opener against the Dolphins. But against the Steelers, they looked a bit better. They only won 17-14, though, and a combined 24 points in 2 games is not really that good, is it? Now, Jones, he just hasn't really been able to break loose. He's had the training wheels on, really, and they've had to rely on their defense, and it might be more of the same here. Now, Baltimore's secondary is banged up. We're gonna have to see the injury report. But here, guys, I think I like Baltimore to really respond in this game. There's a lot of money coming on the Patriots, and I understand why. The Patriots, there's some loyal Patriot bettors, and this is their home opener. But I think Baltimore is going to have a point to prove. They're going to have probably some secondary pieces back. Hopefully Marlon Humphrey comes back. And they're going to need him back after seeing what that secondary did. But I think this is a response game for Baltimore. I'm going to take an average pick here. But I'm taking the Ravens -3. I think this is a big game because Lamar Jackson, he has something to prove, man. They didn't give him that contract extension, and he's really making sure they do because he's playing fantastic. Next up, we have the Titans taking on the Raiders, both 0-2 teams. The Raiders are -1.5. Now, the Raiders are going to look for their first win of the season after losing against Arizona with the fumble from Hunter Renfrow. But they do have some solid signs. Derek Carr has thrown for 547 yards and 4 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs can run the ball, and they have Devontae Adams and Darren Waller, who are 2 fantastic receivers. On the defensive end, they've been pretty solid. Divine Diablo leads the team in tackles. They have Max Crosby also on this team. They're pretty solid overall, Vegas. They just haven't been able to get it done. Now, Tennessee, they got blown out 41-7 last time. Ryan Tannehill has been absolutely poor, and Derrick Henry was limited against Buffalo. Now, for the receiving, Treylon Burks leads the Titans with A.J. Brown gone. And Kevin Byard has looked pretty good defensively, and so has Jeffrey Simmons, who has a pair of sacks. Amari Hooker also has an interception for the Titans this year. And guys, in my opinion, I just view Vegas as the more all-around team. Vegas, they've had 2 close games, but now it's about bringing the pieces together. And Tennessee is the perfect team to put the pieces together against. Guys, this is a money pick. I think Derek Carr is a fantastic quarterback. And I think Devontae Adams is going to look fantastic. Waller, Jacobs, they have too many weapons. And they have a pretty solid defense to match it, who limited both the Chargers and the Cardinals to 23 and 24 points. I think this Vegas team will score over 21 points, and that's going to be more enough to go up against the Tennessee team that has had poor quarterback play with Ryan Tannehill. Don't be surprised if Malik Willis comes out in this game because I think Vegas is going to dominate. I'm taking Vegas -1.5. Make it a money pick, guys. I got my money here on Vegas. Next up, we have the Kansas City Chiefs, who are 6.5-point favorites, taking on the Indianapolis Colts. And I mean, in the first game, the Chiefs really dominated against the Cardinals, 44-21, and Patrick Mahomes did whatever he wanted against that Cardinals defense. And in the second game, it was much tighter. They had to score 13 points in the fourth quarter to pull away from the Chargers, 27-24. Mahomes had 235 yards, 2 scores on 24 of 35 passing. Now, on the Colts side, they've been really poor. They came back from a deficit of 23 to tie the Texans. And in Game 2, they got blown out 24-0 against Jacksonville. Now, Jacksonville has spelled death for the Colts because they've never covered a spread against Jacksonville in years. So that was kind of expected. Ryan threw for 195 yards and 3 picks, and Jonathan Taylor only had 54 yards in that game. They looked horrible. And in my opinion, I think this is just a sign of how bad Indianapolis is. Their offensive line got absolutely punished against the Jaguars. And in this game, I expect much of the same against the Chiefs. I think Chris Jones is going to have a field game on these guys, a field day on these guys. And I think Patrick Mahomes is just going to be Patrick Mahomes. Those games against the Chargers are always close. But this game against the Colts won't, because Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback. It's going to be very similar to the Arizona game where Patrick Mahomes dominates. And with Tyreek Hill no longer on the Chiefs, Vegas is now giving some value to the Chiefs. But they haven't lost a step. You could put anyone in there and he'll still be just as good. Now, maybe not Christian Watson. We can be careful about that. But, you know, they got Juju Smith-Schuster. They got Hardman. And they got Travis Kelce. And they got Clyde Edwards-Helaire at the running back position. This Chiefs team is solid. And to get them at 6.5 to me is a steal against a Colts team that has been really struggling. I'm taking the Chiefs -6.5. Make it a money pick, guys. I get this is the Colts home opener, but still, the Chiefs are going to dominate. Next up, we have the Chargers taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars, who haven't even won a road game since December 2019. Trevor Lawrence is completing 68.1% of his passes, and for 510 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. He's been pretty solid. Christian Kirk and Zay Jones have combined for 283 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns. And they got James Robinson on the ground playing pretty solid. Defensively, Jacksonville showed out against Indianapolis. They didn't really show out against Washington, though, so it's pretty interesting. Which one is it, really? That's kind of what we're wondering. Devin Lloyd led them in tackles, and Josh Allen has 2 sacks, while Rashawn Jenkins has an interception. Now, the Chargers, they've won 6 of their last 9 home games. Herbert has completed 72% of his passes for 613 yards, 6 touchdowns, and a pick. We'll see if he plays. They have Jarrett Everett and Mike Williams, and hopefully they'll have Keenan Allen for this game. Now, DeAndre Carter has 6 receptions himself, and Austin Eckler is a pretty solid running back. He's going to be pretty good. Defensively, they have Derwin James and Khalil Mack and Asante Samuel. I mean, in my opinion, guys, whether Herbert plays or not, I think the Chargers cover this because I think their defense is just this good. Khalil Mack, Asante Samuel, and Derwin James Jr. are going to show out. But hopefully, I'm going to do this assuming Herbert plays. I'm taking him as -7, making an average pick because I think the Chargers are going to show up for a game. I know sometimes they always keep games close, but I think Jacksonville's they're due for a setback in this one. I think it's going to come against the Chargers in this game. Give me the Chargers, -7, average pick. Hopefully, Justin Herbert plays. And I'm wishing the best for him because he looked, even with the injury, he looked incredible against the Chiefs. Like, it was astonishing that throw he made on that 4th down. Next up, we have Tampa Bay, who are 2.5-point favorites traveling to Green Bay to take on the Packers. Now, Aaron Rodgers, he had a big response, a bounce-back game against Chicago where we cashed some money. He won 27-10. And defensively, Green Bay played pretty solid in that game. Jair Alexander looked a lot better. Preston Smith had 2 sacks, and Devondre Campbell leads them in tackles with 15. Sammy Watkins and Randall Cobb, the 2 veteran receivers for Green Bay, have kind of been the go-to for Aaron Rodgers. I mean, Watkins and Aaron Jones, they're combining for 176 yards and a touchdown. Now, running the ball, they looked absolutely fantastic. Aaron Jones had a field day, had around 150 yards and a touchdown. And he also had a receiving touchdown against Chicago. He really got the game going running-wise. Now, for Tampa Bay, they've won 7 of their last 8 home games. Sorry, Tampa Bay's at home. My bad, guys. Now, Tom Brady has completed 59% of his passes. Now, hopefully, they will not have Mike Evans in this game. And Julio Jones and Chris Godwin are both questionable for this game. Now, Brashad Perriman and Scotty Miller are other receivers they can go to. And they do have Cameron Brate. And they do also have Leonard Fournette, who's pretty solid with 192 yards on 45 carries. Now, defensively, this team is fantastic. They look great. Shaquille Barrett has 2 sacks. Jamal Dean looks great. And Devin White leads his team with 19 tackles. Shout out to the University of Michigan. Man, he looks fantastic. Only limiting the Saints to 10 points is something. They won that game for the Saints. And even Carl Davis III looks absolutely fantastic. Now, in this game, guys, we kind of have to watch the injury report. And for that reason, I'm avoiding this game because I'm picking it now. But I'm taking Tampa -2.5. But you have to watch to see if Julio Jones and Chris Godwin plays. You at least need one of those 2 to play. You need at least Chris Godwin to play in order for Tampa to really pull out on this one. Because I think they are better than Green Bay when they have the talent to get it done. So I'm taking Tampa -2.5 on an avoid pick. Next up, we have the Seahawks, who are 1.5-point favorites at home, taking on the Falcons, who had who had 2 close ones. They had a tight game against the Saints, where the Falcons had a 23-10 lead, but they coughed it up. Mariota played pretty decent. And in week 2, the Falcons played another close one. This time, Atlanta was down 28-10, but they came back and only lost 31-27. And if it wasn't for that Jalen Ramsey interception, they could have won the game. Drake London and Cordell Patterson look absolutely fantastic. And this is a promising Atlanta team. Now, on the Seattle side, they played a great opening game where they won 17-16 against Denver. Geno Smith had 195 yards and 2 scores. But game 2 didn't go so well. Seattle was down 20-0 at the halftime and lost 27-7. And Geno Smith didn't look that good. And in the second half against Denver, it was very much the same, where they didn't score at all. I mean, in this game, I really think that just Atlanta's the better team. They look more promising, and I think they're going to get it done offensively. They have more offensive talent. And I think their defense can do just enough to limit Seattle in this game. Now, I get Seattle's at home, but this isn't a primetime game. This is just a regular game. they're going to lose some momentum, lose some steam after that San Francisco reality check. And I think another reality check's coming in for them too. I'm taking Atlanta to win this game because I just think they're the more solid team. Plus 1.5 in this one. And let me double check, but I believe this is an average pick. Am I right? I can't get this up. Okay, I'm going to scroll up. This is average pick. Am I correct? Yeah, it is an average pick. Yep, average pick. See, why don't I just trust myself? Anyways, hold up, guys. Trying to fix something. Oh, shoot. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. I lost my document previewing the games. Okay. Just give me a second, guys. Okay, guys, we are back. Sorry for the technical difficulties there with the screen. The Cardinals are taking on the Rams. Rams are 4-point favorites in this one. Now, the Rams are looking to build on their first win of the season, 31-27 over Atlanta the last time out. Stafford, he played pretty solid game. Cooper Kupp has 236 yards over his first 2 games and 3 touchdowns. Now, on the defensive side, Bobby Wagner had a pair of sacks and Ernest Jones looked pretty good. Now, for the Cardinals to look to build on what was a solid win, 29-23 against Vegas, where Kyler Murray threw for 470 yards, 3 touchdowns and a pick, and he made some amazing plays. While Darrell Williams, he led the Cardinals in rushing yards, and Marquise Brown has 111 receiving yards on the season. Now, defensively, Budda Baker and Jalen Thompson both have 19 tackles, and J.J. Watt also has a sack here. This could be a playoff revenge game, guys. But once again, the Cardinals are playing, so I'm going to have to give it a void pick. I'm taking the Cardinals plus the points again. But I don't really know. This game could really go either way. But in this game, I'm going to take the Cardinals plus the 4. So, yeah, that's just an avoid pick. I don't really know exactly where this game's going to go. And usually when the Cardinals and the Rams play, it's either a really good game or it's a blowout. And the Cardinals are so unpredictable. I've yet to get a grab on them this year. So, avoid pick here, Cardinals plus the points. Next up, we have Sunday Night Football. We have the San Francisco 49ers, who are only a 1-point favorite, taking on the Denver Broncos. And the 49ers are going to look to build on that 27-7 win with Jimmy G at the quarterback. Jeff Wilson Jr. and Deebo Samuel both have 100-plus rushing yards. And Brendan Ayuk has 103 receiving yards to lead the 49ers receiving corps. They're pretty solid. Teleona Hafanga has been pretty good for the 49ers. He has a total of 17 tackles. Nick Bosa has 3 sacks. And as a team, the 49ers have 3 picks this year, 3 interceptions. Now for Denver, they're going to look to build on what was a 16-9 win over Houston. Russell Wilson has been pretty good. They just haven't been able to convert it into touchdowns. Courtland Sutton, he leads the receiving corps with 194 yards receiving, while Jerry Jeudy has 113 yards receiving. Now on defense, Alex Singleton has 14 tackles, while Bradley Chubb and Dermont James have a pair of sacks. And in this game, it could go either way, but I just trust the 49ers a bit more. I think they have a great all-around team, and Russell Wilson hasn't really proved to me much. And now he's got to face a really good defense here in 49ers with Nick Bosa leading the charge. Here, and with Jimmy G back, I think some points are going to go on the board for San Francisco. I'm taking the 49ers -1 here as an average pick. I think the 49ers play solid here. This is Jimmy G's chance to show out, and I think he'll do just that. Next up, we have the Dallas Cowboys heading to MetLife to take on the New York Giants. And for Dallas, their season started out pretty tough. They had a bad loss against Tampa Bay, 19-3, where we cashed on them. But Game 2 was better. It was a close one between them and Cincinnati, and the Cowboys scored just 3 points after halftime, but he got it done. Now, Cooper Rush, he posted 235 yards and a touchdown. He did just enough to win, while Zeke rushed for 53 yards, and Nolan Brown led the receivers again with 91 yards and a score. Now, over on the Giants' side, they're 2-0. They have a couple wins on their belt. They came back from 13-0 to win 21-20 in the first game against Tennessee. In Game 2, they won 19-16, with Jones posting 176 yards and a touchdown on 22 of 34 passing. Now, Saquon Barkley, he rushed for 72 yards. He played pretty solid in that game. And in this game, guys, the Giants are at home here. against Dallas's backup quarterback. And let's not overhype Cooper Rush. He's a backup quarterback that scored 3 points in the second half against a Cincinnati team that isn't even that good, guys. I think Saquon Barkley gets the running game going. Jones runs a few play-action passes, guys. And I got a money pick here. I'm taking the Giants minus 2.5 on a money pick here because I think Dallas is not that good. Other than Micah Parsons, they don't have much on that team. And Cooper Rush isn't that good either. So I think with the backup quarterback in, we're in MetLife. The Giants are coming off 2 solid wins. I'm taking the Giants minus 2.5, making a money pick on Monday Night Football, guys. I'm ready to, let's win some cash here, guys. I think the Giants are just a better team, in my opinion. So, let's quickly just take a look here at our picks. And our all-time record should be on the screen. For our money picks, we have Vegas minus 1.5, the Chiefs minus 6.5, the Giants minus 2.5, and the Ravens minus 3. In our average picks, we have the Commanders plus the 7, the Bengals minus 5, the Bills minus 6, the Saints minus 3, the Vikings minus 6, the Chargers minus 7, Atlanta plus 1.5, and the 49ers minus 1. Now, on our void picks, we have the Steelers plus 4.5, the Texans plus 2.5, Tampa minus 2.5, and the Cardinals plus 4. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Hope you like, comment, and subscribe. And this is Christopher Smithies with SAG. Let's win some cash. Let's respond. We're going to get above that 500 mark. I know we're going to do it, guys. Let's go.